How's it going, everybody?
You know who it is.
My name is Sanwoo, and in this part of the OPXY tutorial series, we are going to take a look at a feature called players. Players are modifiers that can be applied individually to each of your tracks, and they take the note information that is generated either through the sequencer or through playing live and modifies it in some way. There are 3 players available: Arpeggio, Hold, and Maestro. Let's start with the Hold player because this is the simplest. This player is pretty self-explanatory. It's called Hold. It will hold your notes. So I play a note and it keeps holding it. I play another note and it keeps holding it. I can also turn the players on and off by pressing this button and back on again and back off. This was a monophonic track, but this also works with polyphonic tracks. But as I said, these players apply to live playing as well as the notes that are in your sequencer. So let's add a few notes or chords to the sequencer. And now if I play the sequencer, so this allows us to hold every note or every chord indefinitely until the next note or chord gets triggered in the sequencer without having to adjust the length of the note manually. This is what it can be used for, but of course also for any looping pad sound or looping noise that you want to play, as well as playing notes detached from the sequencer, so for live droning if you like. And next up, let's check out the Maestro player. Again, players can be selected by pressing Shift and this key here, and let's go to Maestro, and here it is. The Maestro may seem a little confusing at first, but actually it's very simple as well. All it does is it allows you to enter a certain chord, and then you can play this chord and transpose it, as well as strum the chord and play it up or play it down. That's all. So we enter a chord by pressing and holding Shift and then entering a few notes. Up to 8 notes are possible, I think, but as you see, it took the 4 notes I entered and saved them. And now, if I press a key, it will play back the chord. I can also change this parameter here and change the strum time. You can hear it plays one note after the other, and the higher I turn it, the slower this strum will be. And not only can we play the same chord as we entered it into the Maestro, but by playing different keys, we can transpose it or shift the pitch. There's some other functionality here as well. This knob influences how your chord is played back. So from lowest to highest note, from highest to lowest note. Then we have up and down mode. So it's like strumming a guitar up and then down again. And finally, we also got a random mode. And lastly, we've got a hold mode, which will hold the chord down until we play the next one or until we turn it off. Let's select the sound with sustain for that. Here we go. That's it for Maestro, and now finally let's get to the arpeggio. If you have ever used an arpeggiator, this will be familiar to you, and if you haven't, an arpeggiator takes the notes you input into it and applies certain patterns or sequences and rhythms to it. So let's enter some notes. And that's it. So let's get into the nitty-gritty functions here. We got a hold function once again, which means that we don't have to hold the keys down in order to play them, but just play them in once. On the left side, we've got the timing button. How fast is our sequencer going? And then here again we have in which direction is the pattern going. Right now it's going from the lowest to the highest note, and then it's restarting again. We can also go from the highest to the lowest and then restart it again. And this one here goes from the lowest to the highest and back down without repeating the highest note or the lowest. This mode here will do the same thing, but with repeating the highest and the lowest note of your sequence. Then we have, this one is as you played the notes in, so in the sequence you have entered them. So let's say it will keep playing them in this sequence. And lastly, we've got a random function again. Let's go back to down, up, or rather just the up arpeggio. Here we've got the ladder. It indicates octave switches, so how many octaves are we going through? Lower octave, higher octave. And we also can do 3 octaves. And 4 octaves and so on. Back to 1 octave. So, tempo, direction, up and down, down, up, random, all that kind of thing, octave, hold function. And in this player, we even got more functions by pressing down Shift. So let's play an arpeggio that sounds more interesting. Make it a bit faster. Maybe introduce an octave switch. Okay, here pressing Shift and turning this knob, we have the note length within the sequencer, so all the way counterclockwise short notes and all the way right, they're gonna be held. Let's make him quite short. On the right side here, we have a stereo function, so we've got one note on the right and one on the left once we turn it up. Which is pretty nice. So now it's all the way stereo. And now back in the middle. On this one here, we've got a glide, meaning it will slide from one note to another. Which is pretty nice. Can get some really interesting arpeggios with this. And then finally, we have a sequencer within this sequencer in a sequencer. So when it's off, no special sequences will be applied to this arpeggio. It will just play back in the fashion we have indicated here. But if we turn this, we can apply different sequences to how this works. So let's start with this one. As you can see here indicated, although this may not be exactly correct how it is shown here, it's just an indicator. This one goes from the first note of the sequence to the next, then goes back to the first, then goes to another higher one, back to the first, and an even higher one, and back to the first. So let's try that out by turning the octaves down and entering the same sequence. So you can hear it basically does this. Always back to the first note of the arpeggiator. And this is how it continues. I just selected this pattern because it's the easiest to see what's going on there, but there are multiple patterns to choose from. So here it will repeat one note twice. And then, so what do we have here? We go 3 notes up, back to the first one, and then back to 2 higher notes, back to the first one. I don't know if we're going to hear that properly, but let's see. This was again just played without having the sequencer running. The arpeggiator also works within the sequencer as stated before, and it will take whichever note information is triggered at the time, play it through the arpeggiator until the next notes are triggered. So if I, for example, played this chord here in the sequence, this chord here, and now let's play it without any fancy patterns within the arpeggio. So this way you can play chords and make them sound interesting and give them a rhythm and a pattern. And yeah, I think arpeggios are really interesting in the OPXY, and especially once you combine it with one of my favorite features called linking tracks. I've got a video made on that one as well, up there somewhere. It becomes really, really cool. So I'm gonna leave it here. If you want to learn more about the OPXY, check out my expanding playlist over there, or contact me for private online lessons, link in the description. Please check out my newest sample pack, Lost Woo, in collaboration with Lost Levels. Have a wonderful time. See you in the next video. Peace.